Welcome to Ion Radio. I'm John.
And I'm Ken.
And tonight we have something very different and very special for you guys. We have an interview with another channel, Aaron from Death From Above Wargaming.
So this is going to be the beginning of an expansion to our channel. So in addition to Star Wars Armada, we are going to also be bringing you classic Battletech. So hopefully you enjoy the interview. It's actually more of a geek out, I think, with Battletech. But we are going to be utilizing their campaign system and a couple of their missions for a lot of our videos. So enjoy, leave some comments below. I think we'll link to...
we'll have a link to his channel and his website so you guys can check out the rules and download them and check their stuff out as well.
Welcome to our channel, and I guess welcome to yours. I'm Ken.
I'm John.
All right, and I'm Aaron from Death From Above Wargaming. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
No, thank you for coming on.
So one of the things that we had brought up in advance of our conversation was, again, that we were very intrigued by your own Battletech system. You kind of created your own campaign play, the specific that you guys were using for Death From Above. So we were hoping we can ask you a couple different questions on that, and then just kind of, play through it and everything else.
Yeah, it sounds great to me. I'd be happy to talk about it.
So I think we should start off with some fun questions about Battletech.
Sure.
Like when we all got introduced to Battletech. So Aaron, go ahead. We'll start with you.
Oh man, so back in the mid '80s, late '80s, I guess it was. I discovered Battletech at my local mall, where my mother would go shopping on like a Friday night, and she would either leave me in one of two places, in the arcade or in Allied Hobbies. I don't know if anybody remembers Allied Hobbies, but it was like wall to wall, just RPG. It was phenomenal.
Right.
Loved it. So I would go in there and I would just like drool over all of these things, like $20 for the box set. It seems like so inexpensive today, but back then it was an astronomical sum of money. And so I remember, man, I did all the chores. I worked extra hard. I saved up my money and I bought the 3rd edition box set of Battletech. I had no idea what it was. It just had like 14 plastic robots in it, which was pretty exciting. And of course, paging through all the books, the technical readouts and things, I was like, man, this is awesome. So that was like when I first got into Battletech. And then, I got a couple of my friends into it. I'm still not entirely sure we were playing it exactly right at age 12. I feel like pretty sure we missed like half of the table lookups, but that was it. I mean, that was the hook, and I was in. What about you guys?
Oh, go ahead. I'll let you go.
Okay, so it was right after MechWarrior 3 came out.
Oh, late 90s?
Yeah. So my friends and I found MechWarrior 3, thought it was really fun. And then when we were at Borders one day, I found the, 3rd edition rulebook.
Probably around
and
that time.
Yeah, so we bought that and then started playing it from there.
Oh, that's cool.
Originally, we didn't know that there was like pre-made mechs, so we all just made custom mechs. So it was just like really overpowered custom mechs against each other, and we weren't quite sure probably if we were playing the rules.
Well, hey, that's Battletech.
Yes, it is.
Good stuff.
So for me, Battletech kind of came around in two parts. One of them was, I want to say it was mid-90s when MechWarrior 2 came out. And I fell in love with Clan Jade Falcon, of course the Timberwolf, and everything else off that game. Because if I remember correctly, that was the one where you could play both Jade Falcon and Clan Wolf.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
So it was crazy because my mech was overheating. I couldn't understand why, and you're young at the time. You don't know what's going on. And I talked to a good buddy of mine, and now we start putting a date on how old I am. We were playing Starfleet Battles at the time, and then he told me about Battletech, and well, let's just say it's been kind of going on from since then. And I'll have to share some pictures with you a little bit later, but we kind of put it down during our college years.
Right.
And for his bachelor party, we decided to do a con in his honor. and Battletech was the main event.
Love it.
So we had a 5-on-5 Battletech game. I printed out maps where each hex was about 2.5 inches in size. We had trees, elevated terrain, everything. A lot of fun. So I'll share some pictures with that with you guys
cool.
later.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, it's
Very
good
nice.
stuff, man. The video games hooked me too. I mean, right, I got into the tabletop first, and then my parents actually bought me the original MechWarrior. It was on 3.5-inch floppy, like MechWarrior 1, right? And like the Crescent Hawk games, right? The Crescent Hawk's Inception, Crescent Hawk's Revenge, which I wish I wish I could
really go
find.
back.
Yeah, I have the box somewhere, and I don't have the discs anymore. But man, they were some awesome
That
games.
stinks.
And then I got into, MechWarrior 2. MechWarrior 2 Mercenaries was like my jam. I played probably far too many hours of that. I actually skipped 3. I don't know why. Maybe I was in college. I mean, it must have been I was in high school, and I don't know. When did 3 come out even? Because when I was in college, I was like addicted to MechWarrior 4. That was like my major coming out of college. Was MechWarrior 4.
I know MechWarrior 2 was 95, so
Yeah.
it would have had to have been maybe 2 or 3 years
97,
after.
98.
Yeah.
I
I
must have
think
still.
it's one of those games that, unfortunately, I think Windows 98 wasn't as popular as 95, and then they jumped right up to like Me and XP.
Right.
Oh, Windows ME, but that's a discussion
God,
for another time.
Good old days, yeah. I still have the chime embedded in my head from rebooting so many times before MechWarrior 4. Yeah, good stuff though. I mean, great franchise. So much allure to it, right? Good
There
stuff.
really is. It's one of the most in-depth lores that I can think of, definitely for any kind of miniature games.
Yeah. And I mean, I was talking with a couple buddies, and we were talking before this, right, about Warhammer, and when you think about the depth of the lore there, it goes pretty deep. And I honestly, having played both, having read a lot of the books in both, like it's just as good, And in fact, I think it's a lot harder for Battletech to make a compelling universe because there's no aliens, there's no demons, there's no psychic powers or magic, right? It's just dudes with guns and robots. But they make it really interesting. There's so much subterfuge and political rivalries, and it's a really cool universe. So very, very exciting for sure.
Very nice. Okay, so let's then go into what's your favorite faction, like main house.
So main house, I have to go with the Free Worlds League. And that was probably a later development. When I was playing like MechWarrior 4, I got hooked on sort of more about the lore, and I clung to Free Worlds League because, like Davian are like, supposedly like the good guys, right? They're the most American-esque of the factions. Nobody likes the Capellans. The Combine is cool and has its like Japanese allure, but like, it was all right. Steiner's like, that's too hardline for me. And then the Free Worlds League was like, it's really largely like undefined. There's not a ton of lore. Like if you compare it to the other houses, like they're not featured in a whole lot of novels. And there's just a lot to be written there, I feel like. And that's kind of what attracted me to them. And then also just sort of the general tenets of it were kind of cool. It's got some interesting, the history that it does have is pretty interesting. It's a little different than the other houses. So that's my favorite house.
Very nice, yeah. I think that it's very intriguing how it's built of many different houses
Right.
inside of it.
Yeah, very cool, right? It's got a neat flavor to it for sure. So, I will say though, Mercenaries, obviously, always the coolest, I feel like, forever.
Oh, completely agree. Mercenaries are where it's at.
Just that
that's
idea.
actually when we started playing with your rule set. I just put together a mercenary force because that's kind of my go-to thing to do.
Absolutely. I mean, nothing.
In terms of mine, again, just going around the table, I'm a Fed Sons guy, but that goes back mostly again to the newer MechWarrior games.
Right.
But more so, one of the very first source books I picked up was the Fox's Teeth one, which goes way back.
Yeah.
And this is before it was called Classic Battletech. Which I remember
Back when we
the
could buy soda with a quarter, boys and girls.
Right, exactly. So again, I'm dating myself here, but
I love it.
Yeah. I've always just been House Davian.
Yeah.
That's
That's my second favorite
how it's
faction,
always
so,
been.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah. So then, are you a Word of Blakeist?
So you may not like this answer, but I actually hate that whole everything past the Civil War. I think is awful. Just the jihad was horrible. It's like they were like, oh, we have the clan invasion. What can we do next? Like Civil War. It's like, okay, cool. And they're like, what do we do now? And they're like, and they just like wrote themselves into this progressive corner. And then they're like, okay, Dark Age, let's just blow everything up and turn off the telephones, and we'll try to reset this bad boy. I don't know. I just I'm actually working through a book right now. It's set in that era, and it's just like it's so hard for me. I don't know. It just like all the stuff we talked about in the beginning about how interesting the universe was. Like, I don't know. I feel like that undoes it for me. But no, definitely not a Blakeist. I would definitely be on the other side of the fence if I had to pick.
Yeah. I think what they should have done with Jihad and Dark Age is just kill off all the main characters, and instead the characters that were important before somehow survived through to end it.
All of them. Yeah, it's a very...
All of them.
It's a very, like, what's the word, like a Mary Sue type, what do they call that in literature, where, like, all the good guys always win, and, like, they're perfect, and, like, I don't know. I mean, it was very cheesy to me. And then the whole Devlin Stone thing, I know people love it. I think it's awful. Like, he runs around in his Atlas. Let me tell you something. We've all played MechWarrior enough. I played in intense leagues, and, like, when you see a dude and you know he's good, he's dead in, like, 3 seconds. Like, he comes into range, and he gets nuked. Like, Gauss rifles, lasers, I mean, he's done. Like, I mean, it just happens, right? Like, but somehow this dude's just, like, wading through, like, fire all the time, and, like, his battered Atlas comes rumbling through the forest, and he's like, hey, everybody, I'm okay. It's like, come on, guys. Like, give me a break. I would never let that happen,
You got to have that plot armor in the novel.
Yeah, I guess you do. I don't know.
How much per ton is that?
What's the battle value of that? Right.
There's an interesting thing to add into a campaign: plot armor.
Yeah, perfect. That is funny. I think it's called Edge in the MechWarrior 2, MechWarrior 2nd Edition role-playing game. If you guys have not played that, phenomenal game.
I'll have to check that out.
It's old school.
Write that
actually,
down.
My copy still has the Allied Hobbies sticker on it. That was another one I saved up for. But it's that we played a campaign integrated with tabletop, and it's, I think, better than whatever the Time of War, whatever the new RPG is, which I think you need like an actuarial degree to play. The second edition one is much better. I think it plays smoother. It's more fun. But that's just me. So.
All right, so let's actually get into the meat of all the real talk here. The big reason we wanted to get in touch with you, and that's to actually talk about the Death From Above campaign rules.
Yeah.
So you kind of got that out of, if I remember correctly, you said you adapted the Chaos system to kind of your own rule set.
Right.
What was really your principal driver for doing that? And, why don't we talk a little bit about that? Maybe we can spawn some questions from there.
Yeah, so not to give too much history, but it really started with the sort of some of the key house rules that we made. So I'm my background, or at least what I do now, is it's very data driven, very data heavy stuff, and so I love crunching numbers. And if I'm going to make a house rule, like statistically, it needs to be similar with the feel of the game. And when we got back into Classic from 40K, it felt so cumbersome to me. If you like rumble up on somebody in a stalker and you have like 12 weapons to shoot, like you can tell your buddies to go like pick up like Burger King, because it's going to take you a while before you resolve 12 hits, 4 different missile cluster tables, like 32 different hit locations. It's too much, right? It's too slow. So we invented like this group fire rule, which was inspired by something in strategic ops, right? And that was sort of the foundation of it. And then the cluster rules, which all these things are like very statistically similar to the rules as written. And then from there, we started the channel. We realized that there were people out there that really appreciated this style of play. And Kevin actually really wanted to take these campaign rules, so credit to him, and modify them. So we started looking at this. And it was under the same tenet. How can we make it sleeker, faster, but more meaningful, right? That's really, I think that's really the crux of it. So, the inspiration was the Chaos campaign, but if you look at the Chaos campaign, there's like war chest points and this and that, and the missions are, like, they're so close. Like, so close, but every single mission's like, well, if you destroy 75% of the opponent, you win, or if you destroy 100% of the opponent, you win. And that's boring, right? That's not fun, right? And I know we'll probably talk about the missions in a bit, but there has to be more to a war game than just kill the bad guys, right? There's not really a lot of strategy in that, and I think a lot of us play these games because we like to engage our brains, we like to outthink our opponents, flanking maneuvers, pincer maneuvers, all of these types of things, the old bait and switch with the locust, and so, this is the kind of stuff that we wanted to bring to life on the table. So that was sort of ingrained in the DNA of the campaign system, if you will.
So I know when we pilot tested, what was the engagement that we played with the objective points for the 6?
I believe Interception?
Intercept,
yeah. The 6 that go live?
6, and they go hot. Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
And it was absolutely amazing how close that particular battle was for the two of us. And we brought two kind of radically different builds. I had a couple light mechs which ran in and grabbed 2 points right away, versus your bigger guys, which are just destroying me.
Davian, I had a lot of ACs.
Yeah, well, typical.
So.
That game that's great. That's
a draw.
Yeah, that's a fun one. And sometimes the dice go in your favor. Sometimes they don't. It adds that element of pressure. And again, in bed talking about the DNA of like the campaign and sort of the missions, like things don't always go your way in war, right? Sometimes, you get a call and they're like, hey, you got to take the back line. Like, you got to do it. You got to push through. Sometimes all the objectives land on your side and everything's great and you have to play defense while the attacker pushes real hard. We wanted to simulate that. Intercept does that really well. And then the escort mission, right? That's just a Battletech classic. If you guys are MechWarrior players, right? There's about an escort mission, I think, in every single MechWarrior game known to man. Just all these different types of missions. And honestly, a lot of them were inspired or even directly adapted from, War Machine or Warhammer or a lot of these other games. It's all there, but for some reason the Battletech missions just had this sort of hole in them. And so that those missions, right, that sort of intensity was what we wanted to sort of roll through into a campaign system, because the premise is that, like, if the elevator pitch for the campaign is, what you do in this battle is going to affect you, the next battle and the next battle and the next battle, right? If you play recklessly on a seek and destroy, right, and you run all your forces in and you destroy all the buildings, but you lose your lance, well, you're down 4 out of 10 mechs, at least, right. we typically play with 10, right? You're going to have a hard time fitting, into the next battle, fitting a lance, right? Finding that right battle value. So, it's again, that was really the inspiration behind it. And I think that was missing from the original cut of, or maybe this isn't the original one, it's probably a reprint, but of that Chaos Campaign. In fact, I think Chaos Campaign was in one of the older editions of Total Warfare. And this was reprinted as like a standalone thing. But regardless, I digress.
I think you're
Yeah.
right.
I digress.
Yes. So in that, going along with your campaign and some of the rules you changed, again, probably for your house rule purposes, we noticed that we were hitting things at longer ranges. It seemed like we were doing more damage. We had 3 headshots, right? Which isn't typical in other games of Battletech that we played. So I'm curious, is that part of what you were hoping to get out of your rule set?
Yeah, so with the headshots, it's just you got a hot hand, man. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
You're actually, I think, statistically more likely to roll, when you're rolling all those stalker hits, and you've got, all your LRM 10s, you're rolling like 42 times for location, you're probably more likely to get a headshot then, but no, all joking aside, definitely we wanted a faster, more lethal system. So you'll notice, we crunch all of the range penalties down. So normally it's, 0 to 4. We use the optional extreme range rule, which is a 6, and then we crunch all those penalties down to just 0, 1, 2, 3. And we do that because if you really look at the probability of hitting mechs at long range, in rules as written, it's absurd. Let's say you've got even a 3, which is the average pilot in the campaign, the Chaos Campaign rules as written. So your piloting is 3. Let's say you're walking, that's a 4. Let's say they've got a 2 target mod and you're at a 5, 6, and then they're at long range. You're at a 10. And that's not That's you walking and then barely, I mean, they're not moving that fast. It's a 10. I think the probability to nail a 10 is like, I don't remember the top of my head. I think it's like 18%. Might be.
It's thereabouts.
Yeah, it's something like that.
Yeah.
About 6 out of 36 is probably about 18%. Yeah.
You know, so
you figured it'd be a lot easier to hit a giant, mech.
and we're talking
slow.
long range, right? So long range at Battletech. If you're looking at an LRM, going to nerd out here for a moment. 21 inches, 21 hexes. It's like 630 meters. Which, by the way, is way too short for a long-range missile, but whatever. I'll suspend my disbelief on that. I mean, you're telling me you can't hit a giant robot 630 meters away, and you're supposed to be one of like the, like a veteran pilot? Come on now, like this is like absurd. So when you start to hack down those range penalties a bit, that 10 becomes an 8, and because of the 2d6 probability curve, your chance to hit is now, what is it, a little over 40%. Which is
probably around 40%. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like a substantial difference. So absolutely intended. I think the game drags out, and and I'm not knocking on anybody for playing the game this way, but if you watch, you look at some battle reports that might be out there, not necessarily on YouTube, but I'm talking like where they post the pictures of them. Like all the mechs are like this far. They're like all at like point blank range, and they just stand still and shoot at each other, and it's like, why? Like, what is this game? It's like, looks like Chutes and Ladders. Like, I'm not really sure what's happening. Meanwhile, if you play Warhammer, right? I mean, you've got, dudes dropping artillery in, and, your Marines are moving up to hold this bunker. And, there's so much more tactical depth to that game than there is to, like, when you play Battletech and you can only hit on 12s or 10s. Like, there's just not much there, and it's not very fun to miss all the time. So to me, Classic lacks, in the rules as written, like, completely in that whole, like, that like math mechanic. Like, there's just the probability of hitting is way too low for me. Alpha Strike does a better job at it, admittedly, but even that we tweak the range modifiers, although that's an optional rule, so I don't feel as bad about it. But yeah, so to back to your original question, off my nerd tangent, yes, we definitely wanted it to be easier to hit, more, and more hitting is more damage. More damage is faster games, but we wanted to keep it still fun, not like, all my weapons hit the same location and bore through your left torso in one shot. Although, that's kind of what happens in MechWarrior. But so, that's kind of where we landed with those rules.
Nice. Yeah, going to dice probability, when we first started playing and not understanding anything about probability, we were making all those 12 rolls and not understanding why they hit, and our mechs were overheating.
Right. Yeah, and right, that's the other thing, right? You shoot, you build up heat, and then it's even harder to hit, right? If you start accumulating, I mean, I don't know if you guys look at the Battletech stuff, but I mean, if you take on any heat, I mean, people are like, "Oh my God, you guys never use, you never push on your mechs." And I'm like, dude, you take a +1 penalty to gunnery, like that's an absurd. Unless you're at point blank, that's an absurd penalty. Like, you're not hitting anymore. Like, you could just stop shooting for a turn because it's a waste. But anyway, again, I digress.
No, heat is definitely the killer of all mechs. And when you start looking at a lot of, each one of your different miniature games, I know at Starfleet Battles, the big phrase is "speed is life."
Yeah.
I think in Battletech it's got to be something like "don't overheat your mech." I mean,
I actually think they have speed is life somewhere in the Battletech book too, but clearly heat is more important because the first thing that happens when you overheat is you slow down. So.
Right. Yeah, you slow down, you get easier to hit, and I know in our last game that we played, I came very close to losing my mech about 3 times in a row.
Yeah, heat is.
You almost you were 1 pip away from doing an ammo explosion.
I was, so that was fun.
It's dangerous grounds.
But I think I wound up scoring something off of that, maybe.
Well, that's the trade-off then, right? Like, that's, again, there you go. That's the mission objectives, right? It adds that extra dimension. Gotta love it. And
that's where the campaign play comes into a lot of fun. Again, because you have a purpose for that battle. It's not just the one-off, shoot the opponent and then go home and pick a different series of mechs another day.
Yeah. The other thing I think it does, we were talking a little bit about probabilities and the length of the game. I mean, we've got guys that comment on YouTube and they're like, "Oh, you guys, takes too long." There's no way you shouldn't be able to play, 12 mechs in 4 hours. And I'm like, what game are you playing? like even in Alpha Strike, I can't do 12 mechs in like 3 hours. Like it still takes us 4 hours or whatever. Maybe that's because of the filming, but I don't know. Anyway, like like you really need to wrap up between like you want to have like 6 to 9 turn game, Tim, in my opinion. 6 is probably a little short. We find honestly just organically most of our games are 7 to 8 turns because by then in a campaign you're like, you know what, this is not, the risk is not worth the reward. I'm not going to lose all my mechs here, so I'm pulling back, right? We have all the withdrawal rules for like retreating off the field and things like that. So it does add that like meta layer to the game that you guys were kind of talking about, right? And that helps to control also and time box your games a little bit because, I wish I had all day on Saturday to just, play Battletech and eat pretzels, but unfortunately that's not the life I live. We hang out, Kev, Tom, whoever we come over, we play, 3-4 hours, on a weeknight and, start at 8, wrap up at midnight. And that's, that's it. I mean, that's easy and it's fun and it's intense. So I think it checks all the boxes for us. And I think a lot of people like it. I think they like that style of playing, where they can kind of be done and still have a very fun and intense and rewarding game. So that's really what, from a meta perspective, what the rules try to do as well.
Well, definitely watching the DFA videos, one of the things we like to look at it as is it's Battletech game in an hour, at least what we see from what you have filmed. And it's a great presentation of the game because we can follow it, and it's engaging, which I think is fun. And clearly, I know when in the games that we've seen, whether it's you and Kevin or whomever, there's always a lot of people having fun, which I think is kind of key.
Yeah, well, I will tell you, I'm like a competitive jerk, but when I'm doing it for the channel, even if I'm getting like my butt kicked, I'm always thinking to myself like, man, this is great. I'm like, this is a great story. This is great content. It's great narrative. So it sort of eases my pain. But I have been known to flip a game board or two in my day. So
I think we all have at some point or another.
Yeah. So I'm going to go off of that. For one of my favorite Battletech moments growing up, and my brother permanently rage quit.
Permanent rage quit. That's serious.
Yes. So he had an Atlas, and he dumped all of his points into the Atlas. And I had a bunch of little light mechs, and I ran up a mech. I don't remember what it is, which is frustrating, but I ran right in front of him, and I machine gunned him. And I got really, really lucky and hit him in the head, which he failed the pilot roll.
Good day.
So then he fell down.
Love it.
Which then landed in the head.
Oh, jeez. I see where this is going.
Which knocked the pilot out. So eventually on his next turn, he got unconscious again, stood up, and then fell over again. Which that time, instead of a double 6, he rolled, I think, like a double 1 or something.
Right, the floating critical or critical hit to the chest or whatever you play.
You know how an Atlas holds all that ammo?
Oh, no. Bad day.
Bad day.
Bad day indeed.
Atlas taken down by a machine gun to the face.
Man, well,
that was the last time you played Battletech with me.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it happens. I just had that happen. I was playing my buddy Ryan in one of the campaigns. I think it was the Iridani Light Horse and Capellan one. And he just one-shotted my Warhammer with like a flea. I think he medium lasered it to the head. The dude blacked out. I think it was 2 rounds, and then he aim shotted it and just blew out the cockpit. But listen, these things happen.
So it's funny that you mentioned Warhammer getting one-shotted. So I brought up earlier that we did this giant Battletech game with 5 mechs on 5 mechs for my one buddy and his bachelor party.
Yes.
So he's in the Warhammer because that is his all-time favorite mech. And he's prancing along the battlefield, and the one mech I have, I'm pretty sure I was in a Wasp, but I may have been in a Stinger.
Okay.
In either case, I was taking damage. You only have a medium laser on the right arm.
Right.
The actuator on the arm was frozen. So I'm sitting there bouncing around like this on one leg. That's it. And I had the luckiest shot to his back at, I think it was long range. And I happened to cut through his armor, or what was left in the rear of it.
Good times.
And I hit the ammo packs, and the whole Warhammer went up. And game over. So he just thought that was the best thing ever because, clearly...
Because it's Battletech.
It's Battletech.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
but it's funny how that happens. You're right.
And that is one of the cool things of the game. I mean, I hate ammo explosions. I think they're a little too crazy, especially machine guns. Like, I mean, if this were like the real world, no one would ever put a machine gun on anything. Like, it's like it's like walking around with a bomb strapped to your chest. But I mean, the ammo explosions, right? Those random head hits, like, it just adds another dimension. So it makes BattleTech so different from, you know, Warhammer or like X-Wing or one of these games where, you know, they're great games, you know, but you take damage and you take the model off the board. Like these things sustain damage. Your actuator gets hit, you know, your ammo gets hit, like your gyro gets hit. Like, there's all these different components. They do all these different things. I think all that stuff is really like just like the heart and soul of BattleTech. But good stuff. Always good stuff.
I think part of that's, you know, a relic of what you saw in a lot of the war games that came out of late 70s, early 80s, even to the mid and late 80s. There was all this great detail. The games just took forever to play.
Yeah.
And nowadays, most of the miniature games are a lot faster, designed to be played in, 90 minutes to 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it's not as... It's different style of play, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, whether they have to compete against, you know, Xbox, PlayStation, right? You know, lightning fast PCs with sweet games on them. I mean, there's all sorts of, you know, and we live in a different culture, right? Everything's on demand. And you know, people are like, "Do you go to the store like ever?" And I'm like, "No, I stay in my house and I do this," and like appears at my front door. That's all I need to know. I mean, it's just a totally different time. And like, to your point, like, we don't want to be spending. I wish I could, but I can't. Like, I don't have 7 or 9 hours to like play a game. I just don't anymore. And so that's where I think, you know, Alpha Strike had something, but they left too much of the, and this is what Kevin doesn't like about Alpha Strike inherently, they left too much of the other stuff we were just talking about, the head hits, the gyro hits, like the details there, it's abstracted, but they could have just went, I think, a little deeper, you know? Something in between Classic and Alpha Strike, I feel like would be, you know, be the sweet spot for me. Would be totally perfect. But again, off on a tangent. A battle tangent.
A battle tangent. I love it. Go ahead, I'll let you ask the next question.
Let's see what is up next. So usually on a recording night for you guys,
yeah.
What's the process with it? I know you have gorgeous boards that you guys play on. How long does that take up to make, and then like how long does your game and recording process and everything take?
Yeah. So typically, you know, the board setup, it depends on the complexity, but I mean, you can probably get that set up in 30 minutes to an hour. You know, we're pretty proficient at it, and that's usually just me setting it up typically. Sometimes if Kevin get over early enough or Tom's there early, you know, they'll do it or whatever while I'm printing out Alpha Strike cards or record sheets or whatever. But yeah, that's about an hour-long process. You know, 30 minutes. You know, if it's a very simple sort of setup. But you know, buildings, bridges, all these things, they like always add complexity, and then they fall over, and I have to like set them up again. We call Tom Tectonic Tom because he likes to come in and like bump the table like invariably every time. So that's why I say an hour. No, but so that's like, you know, that's like step one, right? And then you know, we have 4 like box lights. We set those up. That's, you know, 5-minute affair. And then, you know, we do our intros, which we've gotten pretty good at that. You know, that's usually one take now. You know, we kind of intro the whole thing. You know, we usually have an email about, you know, the type of battle we want to play, unless it's a campaign, right? But if we're just doing a one-off, like we'll say like, oh, let's do this mission. We haven't done this in a while. You know, what force do you want? You know, like what haven't we played in a while? You know, from a mech perspective, we try to keep it interesting. So that's usually done ahead of time. But if not, we'll talk about it ahead of time. Then we'll do the right before the battle report. I mean, then we do the intro, and we just get right into playing. Takes about, I want to say, like I said, we take about 4 hours to play a game, you know, and actually 4 hours, I would say, from start to finish, from doing the intro to filming the outro, you know, the wrap up, the after action report, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I mean, it's about 4 hours all in. Some nights might take a little bit longer depending on the length of the game, or how many rules lookups we need. Like with Alpha Strike, we've had to go back to the rule book a few times because there's always these weird like outlying scenarios that, you know, you never realize until you're actually in the game and playing them. So we had to do some rules lookups. But yeah, you know, I guess, you know, 4 to 5 hours, if that answers the question. the post processing is really where I sink all my hours into, like all the animations and stuff. That's meaty.
So that was actually going to be one of the questions I had, because I love the opening intro, and again, we love the way that you got the mech damage report in between turns. Is that something that you do yourself, or?
Yeah, that's a labor of love. So the intro, like the flybys, I actually record those like after the table's set up, right? Like the flyovers before Tom bumps the table. I typically do the flyovers, and then I. When I edit it, I'll usually do all the voices. Kevin's done a few. I've had my wife stand in for all the female pilots, and then you run them through like an audio filter, and you get some different sounds with them, which is pretty cool. So that little sort of segment, doing all the voices and stuff. I mean, that alone can take an hour, believe it or not. And then
I believe it.
Yeah, and then the damage reports, all the intro animations, the damage reports. I basically have those set up as templates, right? So I'll pull the template that I need, I'll populate it, and then I'll cut it to a video. I actually am very excited. I just bought I treated myself as we are in bonus season at my company. I treated myself to a new laptop. So I'm hoping. Got a sweet Alienware coming, like 9th gen i7, 2060, nice. RTX card, I think it is. So I'm hoping that cuts down on the render times, because that's what really kills me. Like I'll input it and then I got to render it, and then it's like might be 3-4 minutes sometimes to render one of those like 20-second animations. Although I guess I'm rendering like a whole bunch of them at once, because I'll I'll click and render them, and it could take But then if you mess one up and I'm like, oh crap, I put F-Norcer instead of Enforcer, I got to go back and But usually once you get turn 1 done, then you just you can kind of cut and paste or edit them from there, But once that takes a lot of time. A battle report probably takes me honestly 9 hours. I probably spend 3 nights. Doing it, from 9 to 12 or whatever. So they're, those take a lot of time. The mech reviews, they're fairly quick. I could probably turn one over in 4 hours, from running the Battletech analysis to animating it to filming it and to cutting it. They're very quick. But the battle reports, the animations, they take a lot of time. So, but it's worth it. I think it's pretty cool. It adds a lot. Hopefully, my new Alienware, speeds that process up. So, got my fingers crossed.
We're definitely going to be looking forward to seeing what you actually can produce with your new hardware. So,
yeah,
we'll keep an eye on your channel and find out. Actually, that brings up a good question. So, what was the original hope with you starting the Death From Above Wargaming channel?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it sort of started, as a vague idea around, hey, why don't we get some battle reports out there? So to rewind, we talked about 40K. So for years, I was playing 40K, and then they did, 6th edition, 7th edition, and 8th edition, within a year, I think. And it was just I still have multiple books on my shelf that are all duplicates. And I was like, man, I'm not, this is outrageous. I don't want to do this anymore. They started deprecating units that I really liked. I don't know if you guys play 40K or not, but everything's custom. My Space Marine captain of my own homebrew chapter is probably 25 unique little pieces. I shaved little knee pad emblems off, these dudes, and every little individual spike on his helmet is painstakingly handcrafted out of green stuff, and then these rules come up and they're this unit sucks now, so go buy the new ones. And I hate that model. The one thing I loved about, and Battletech too, the same units were good forever, And I get that there's a business model behind that, and they make their money from models and things like that, but there are better ways to go about that. I didn't like the deprecation of units, so I got back into Battletech. We talked a little bit about that. And when I made the switch, I was on YouTube. I was like, let me catch up. I'll watch some battle reports. And there were there's none. There's not very many. There are a few out there from, I can't remember, I think Steel Warrior does a few. There was another guy that, I don't know, it was like a game store out in the Midwest somewhere that was doing them, but then he stopped. There was really just not a lot, and nothing at like the level of, my inspiration, right, which is like a Tabletop Tactics or like a Winter's SEO or some of these Warhammer channels. I don't know if you guys watch those, they're great. But the production, Mini Wargaming's another one, right? The production quality is good, personalities are good, right? The games are engaging. They don't do a lot in terms of, their custom rules, so I think we're a little bit of a different, we have a bit of a differentiator there. And I think Battletech tends to lend itself to that. But really, when I noticed that gap, I was like, man, why don't we do this? And, I think Tom was there, Kevin was there. We're all like, yeah, we'll give it a shot. So, we sort of sat down and figured out what we were going to do and got to work. So it was about a year between, sort of conceptualization to launch before we dropped our first video. But, that was really the inspiration. It's like, just the fact that there was a gap and an opportunity, I think, to bring some great content out and ultimately influence the game, which I would love to do. I think, again, we talked about this ad nauseum, like, it's an amazing universe. The game itself, the core, right, the core spirit of the game is phenomenal, but it is outdated. I mean, candidly, and I think they made an attempt at modernizing with Alpha Strike and half-baked it. Again, don't mean to knock anybody. I think it's a great first attempt, but I think, if you Google Alpha Strike and go to the don't Google Alpha Strike, because that's apparently also it's a whole other story. But if you Google Battletech Alpha Strike and you go drill into the forums, you will find everybody's got custom rules because there are just gaps everywhere. I was on Instagram today. One of the guys that we follow each other, and he was posting up these cards from Alpha Strike, and it's like the Turkina Z. I think Turkina is how you say it. Some 95-ton clan mech, the Z variant, and it's like short range damage is like 15, and I'm like, who signed off on this? Like, even if that's how it converted from classic BattleTech, who was like, this is a great idea. It can split fire and like melt 2 medium mechs in one round. Like, why? Like, granted, the thing's like 86 points or something. I mean, still, it's just like, these are the things I feel like there's like these misses that they have. And so, I don't think this was a driver for setting up the channel, but it's certainly a driver now, is like the opportunity to influence the franchise in like a more modern direction so it doesn't fizzle out. Because if I look at my channel statistics, I will tell you the demographic sweet spot is like 35 to 55. Like, what about everybody else on the left side of the spectrum there? Like, what about all the teenagers and all the, the 20-year-olds? Like, what are they doing? Like, why aren't they playing this? Why aren't they watching? And it is possible that, maybe I haven't reached that demographic segment yet, but I think that those statistics on YouTube, like if you go to your local game store and see who's playing, it's pretty much a direct match, right? So,
yeah, it is.
I think there's opportunity there, and ultimately that's why we started the channel.
So your channel actually had a lot of influence on us starting up as well. So back in the day, Ken and I used to play at a local game store, and they would stream their videos.
Oh, cool.
Of us playing, and we enjoyed doing that, but that game store actually closed down. So it wasn't until, I think, about a year ago you guys started launching videos consistently.
Yeah, exactly. February 10th.
And
so almost exactly a year, a little over.
It's a happy birthday
happy
to us.
anniversary.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
DFA,
Yeah.
So I saw you guys, and you have such phenomenal quality. Like, your graphics, the way you record everything. And I went to Ken, and I'm like, I want to do this with the game that we played the most of, which is Star Wars Armada.
Yeah.
And that's what caused us to kind of go into this whole YouTube adventure.
Yeah.
And it was for us. It was kind of a slow roll, slow burn, and we're now a little over 100 days into it. Where we've had actual content out. We've got a decent little following, and we decided let's expand our channel just a little bit, and we wanted to get Battletech in there. As John said, DFA and what you've been doing with your campaigns was kind of an inspiration. So we figured we'd go right to the source and kind of start talking to you about your campaign system, Battletech. So I guess one of the questions we have, because as we've already previously discussed, we're going to be using your campaign for a series of videos for us on our channel for Battletech. What would you hope we can get out of your campaign rule set and Battletech in general?
Well, I hope you get to 4 games, because if you get to 4 games, or even 5 games, I mean, that's when it really is going to be hitting the fan and you're going to be limping around with some messed up mechs. Hopefully it's not a 3-game sweep. It's always fun when you get like, you know, when it's a good back and forth trade, and it doesn't always happen, but if it does, and you get to those like late games and it's like a nail biter and you have to field some real junk on, you know, because you don't have any support points left, you know, you're like, gee, do I field the, you know, the Raven with a, you know, a half of a gyro, or do I want to field the, you know, the Wolfhound with an engine hit? That's always fun, right? You know, because again, you know, you've got this limited pool of support points, so that would be cool. But you know, ultimately, I just, you know, I hope you guys enjoy it, right? I mean, I'm interested in your feedback, interested to see what your experience is. I mean, we've gotten some feedback. I think overall it's been pretty positive. But you know, I think I just really hope, you know, you guys enjoy that sort of that extra meta layer, if you will, or whatever you want to call it. You know, that weight over every individual fight. That, you know, that really kind of, you know, adds that depth to the game.
Well, I think definitely we'll get the enjoyment for the overall campaign. Just looking through the missions you have and the ability to kind of adjust the strength and level of the fight, I know for us was really fascinating in how that works. And I think you mentioned at one point that you may have some new missions coming out. Is that still on the board or no?
Yeah, we got some really, Kevin and I have been batting around some stuff, and we really have some really exciting missions, like things that I would want to play. You know, I don't want to spoil too much, but I'll give you a little teaser. You know, this is another one. You know, Kevin is the mastermind behind Intercept, by the way. That was his brainchild. But he had this other one he sort of came up with, and we've been refining it, where, you know, basically his idea was like, you know, moving the line. So imagine almost like a football field, right? And, you know, the teams are really trying to push the, you know, that battle line back, right? And how would we sort of represent that, and how does that work, you know? Because it's fun if, you know, you got these mechs that can like bust around and flank, but, you know, really there's like a battle line in this mission, this new one that we're working on, that needs to be held, and, you know, like, you know, how you move that forward and back, and, you know, you've got the lateral distance to kind of work with, but we have some pretty cool stuff coming up. So lots of neat missions in the works, and of course some very simple ones too, you know, like like a classic, you have a base, I have a base, you know, and we're both trying to either capture and, you know, or kill or protect our own. So you have to kind of divide your forces up and figure out, you know, tactically, do you want to play defense? Do you want to play offense? Do you want to just go balls to the wall to their base? You know, so we have some more simple ones that are going to be fun, and then we have some more complicated ones that I think that'll be pretty neat as well. So we're probably going to plan on releasing maybe 3 or 4 next. We've all got a whole vat of ideas, but, you know, only a few of them are well formed. But they're coming out soon, and we're also working on converting the existing mission set over to Alpha Strike, as well as the campaign rules. So we'll have it available for both Classic and Alpha Strike as well. So
we both really look forward to all of that.
Yeah, it'll be cool.
Yeah, I think we're going to go through a full campaign of Classic Battletech, and then, you know, I know that we've been talking a little bit over here about Alpha Strike, so we've been enjoying your videos for sure, which has gotten me interested. I know we, even earlier today, were kind of just discussing it just a little bit, throwing around.
Yeah, I find if you want to do like a 4-on-4 inner sphere type battle, I think Classic is king. But, you know, what really drove me to Alpha Strike, there were 2 things really. We had a lot of subscribers clamoring for combined arms, and I made this joke in one of our Hyperpulse uplinks, like, if you really like sit down and look at the rules in Total War for infantry, and you read like they have this like they have a sidebar. It's like, you know, Jenny shoots her Atlas at the infantry unit. And it's like, and it just goes through like what Jenny has to do to just like successfully resolve this attack. It's like the whole freaking page of like how to resolve this attack. And this is like an infantry unit. Like you should just be able to like blow it up. But no, if it's a laser and it's raining,
smash.
Right, that is not how this works, right? You know, lasers just don't kill, you know, and it says it in the book. It's like, well, lasers just don't kill, you know, multiple people. They only hit one dude. And I'm like, yeah, but they fire like shrapnel and flak and debris everywhere. Like, this is like a megajoule, like, pssst, it's burning through armor, but somehow it only kills one dude. I don't know. Listen, I didn't write the rules, but it's like, I would never want to do that. Just like, I'd rather run my face through a wood chipper. It's awful. So, when we think about that, like, that's point one. Like, if you want to do combined arms, Alpha Strike, everything it's really well done, I think, like the combined arms. Like, you know, you want to play aerospace on the table, you want to play VTOLs, like we just released one today with infantry in it, and every unit feels different, you know, mechanically, but not to the point where, like, you know, you need to be, you know, reading these ridiculous, you know, tables and you know, it's so much easier, right? Everything takes damage the same way. They all have some little nuances, but it's very simple. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is really around, I guess, you know, there's actually multiple things, but just the record keeping as well. When you're playing large battles, you know, like having the, you know, we play on a 48 by 48 board. The table itself is probably, I don't know, 5 feet by, you know, 5 feet or whatever. You can only fit so many record sheets before you're like, you know, doing this and looking for the right, you know, which Atlas or Raven am I looking for? And there's just record sheets everywhere, and it's a mess. Alpha Strike, you got cards. You know, you just lay them down on the table. You can fit 30 cards if you need to in your little space, and it's super easy. You know, you mark them off and you're done. I love that, and that's important because when you get to the clan era, you're never going to be able to play like a Timberwolf against, you know, anything unless you're doing just the Timberwolf against a Lance of Inner Mechs. Because I don't know if you saw the one battle, the mech review I did on the Timberwolf, and then the comparo between the Avatar and the Summoner. Clan mechs are so expensive. You know, if you field 5 heavy clan mechs, you're going to need, I mean, if you want to play points, right, battle value, you're going to need, you know, 8, 9, I don't know, a bunch of Inner mechs.
Like a whole company of Inner.
Yeah, really. I mean, and I don't think, honestly, that if, and I would be interested, you know, in your guys' experience if you've ever played this, I would bet that if I played, you know, a very solid, and I don't mean like a, you know, like a Ringer Lance, but a really good Lance of Inner mechs against, you know, your best 5 clan mechs, right? Or just even a 4-on-4. If I mean, I bet you I could eke that out. I mean, because the clan mechs, they don't seem to give you the return on the investment, I guess is what I'm trying to say, is not there. I think the battle value gets totally whacked when you get past the succession wars at the 30-25 era. Once you start introducing clan technology, it's just like the battle value is like absurd. Like I was looking at the Vulture. I'm going to do a mech review on that. I think it's like 2,400 points or something like that.
That's a lot.
And the Archer, I want to do a compare between that and the Archer 5R. The Archer 5R is like 1,600 points. I mean, they're basically very similarly equipped. I think the Vulture's a little faster, you know, but I mean, do I care that much? You know, a couple inches of range. Like, everyone's like, well, you can just run backwards and keep the Archer out of range forever. I'm like, well, you can't, because you're on a freaking table that's only 4 feet long. Like, you can't run forever. Like, you're gonna hit the table edge. You know, like, you could, I mean, I don't know. So anyway, I digress. It's what I do. I could talk about Battletech for days, guys. But anyway,
Same here.
what were we talking about? Alpha Strike. So when you get to the clan era, you know, like, to me, you can't play meaningful. Like, I mean, I want to buy, you know, that Kickstarter, right? I want to get those mechs. I want to put that star on the table and play it. I don't want to have to play like an Adder and like a, you know, the Stormcrow and, like, you know, the Fire Moth, because that's all I can fit in 3,000 PV or you know, 6,000 BV or whatever. You know, it's nuts. So to me, Alpha Strike really does well there. And like I was saying earlier, if they could find a way to kind of take just a little bit more complexity out of Classic, and do away with some of the unnecessary complexity in Alpha Strike, I think you'd have like the perfect system. So
I would agree with that.
It's an opportunity, Catalyst, if you're listening.
Wouldn't it be great if they listened to our channels?
God, it'd be amazing. I'd feel so special.
It would be. Yes, they'll come to us, ask for all our great ideas.
All of our, yeah.
You and Kevin will give these great new campaign options and everything else. So new missions.
Yeah. And I do like, the one thing I like about the campaign we didn't talk about when you said missions, it triggered my memory, is, and this was another Kevin credit, aligning like multiple missions per track, right? So we, and the track system is literally right out of Chaos Campaign. They did that right. It's really cool the way, it's like if you win here, you go here. If you lose here, you go here. That's really cool.
Right.
But it was like you play this mission at this track. You only play this mission. I was like, well, what if we did multiple missions, right? That was Kevin's suggestion. And so, I kind of aligned them as best I could. And as we release more missions, we'll bake those in. So it gives you a little bit more tactical flexibility because you may pick a lance that's very well suited to intercept, very fast and, good range or whatever. And you might want that mission versus having to be like stuck in recon all the time or whatever. So anyway, that's another thing I really like.
So one other little question that kind of came out of that, because we're talking about the tracks and whatnot, do you ever have any thought of maybe putting in the equivalent of touch points into your next campaign series?
Tell me more.
So if you look at the starter books like Sword and Dragon from Battletech,
okay,
you'll have your typical mission tracks, and then there'll be 3 or maybe 4 narrative touch points where after you've completed so many individual mission tracks or you've gained so much in your war chest, here is a special mission you can go on to push the narrative forward.
Oh, gotcha. Yes. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, that's a very cool idea, right? I mean, and the whole notion of, it's very like, brings like RPG elements to like this, the story where like, you kind of like unlock this like next thing, right? The only con I would immediately see of that is like the duration of the campaign. And I guess it depends, right? So if because if you need to play 3 missions to get to the touch point, or you need to play 2 missions to get to the touch point, you're only going to have like 1 or 2 touch points before you really want to wrap up the campaign. But it's an interesting idea. I mean, I think narrative is one of the things that really makes these games come to life. Even if you look at like a 40K or like a War Machine, right? Like the background characters and what's actually happening and what's at stake is such a big part of it. So I don't know. I mean, I'll look into it. That's an interesting recommendation. I like it.
Cool.
That's, though, coming from Ken, who likes to play campaigns that go over like years.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, God, that's like
I'm
reserved.
like, let's finish this campaign in like a weekend. That sounds great. Ken's like, I have 1 weekend. What about the other weekend?
Yeah, no, I mean, so our rules are admittedly, right, streamlined, and like we target like 3 to 5 games, and then you're wrapped up because, again, sort of tying back to why I like Alpha Strike, another great reason I like Alpha Strike is I get to play with all the cool things I painted. And so like that's another reason we like to cycle through the campaigns, right? Is because like you can bring more to the table, it's fresh mechs, fresh paint jobs, new minis that you might have bought. So all of that stuff, we like to kind of keep it lean and mean, as they say in the industry.
We should probably wrap it up.
Yeah, I think that's really, Aaron, all the questions we've got for you. I don't know if you got anything coming back towards us.
No, I mean, I guess the one big question I have is, so you guys are gonna do the campaign.
Yes.
What factions are you gonna play? Have you decided yet? I mean, you're both Davian fans.
I don't even know what I'm playing.
So I'm wondering, if you're both Davian fans, like, are you gonna have to roll to see who gets to play the Federated Sons?
So I'm actually gonna go and put together a mercenary faction.
I like it.
So I think we're both gonna kind of play with about a 10 mech lineup. We're probably gonna force ourselves to do 2 light mechs each.
Yeah.
And we haven't quite decided on the BV yet. But it'll be interesting to find out. I know when we put our first list together, we were surprisingly quite similar with a couple differences in terms of what we put out.
Yeah.
But definitely we'll keep in touch. We'll let you know.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about it.
And then you'll be able to see it on our channel
Yeah.
too.
I already know what unit I'm going to be. What is it? Is it pronounced Cruis? Or what? 3rd Cruis Lancers.
Oh yeah, the Crucis or whatever they are. Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. I don't know how to pronounce half the names in Battletech. I just make them all
anything.
up.
They need a glossary, like pronunciations.
Yeah, that's exciting. And yes, take those light mechs, man. I'm telling you, they're critical for flexibility, building your forces in Game 2, Game 3, Game 4. Like, especially the later you get in, if you really want to screw your opponent over, like kill all of his like light dudes like right out of the gate, and then pick a low value mission, and he'll be in big trouble. You got it. All those mechs. You got to bring a nice balanced force to the table. I mean, we've learned. I mean, if you bring a top heavy force, or if you hit like obviously you've got an average BV. So if you just kind of like play everything at the average and everything's about the same BV, you're gonna have a lot of trouble fitting mechs like into the force. So it's like a nice gradient is real important. Pro advice.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'm currently finishing painting my 2nd company.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow.
So
I'll eventually getting around to finishing my first company, but
at some point. Listen, you're mercenaries. They can be all different colors. It's okay.
That's true. Just a couple different cans of spray paint, some contrast colors. I'm done.
Done. I mean, listen, I'm not going to lie. That's mostly how my green vehicles are, Some of them are this. I mean, they come out good. Put a little highlight on them. Like you said, put a little wash on them. Tiny little bit of detail work. You turn them out pretty quick. That's the other great thing about Battletech is like, when you play Warhammer, you literally need to paint for like weeks to put something like field and army. Battletech, a couple nights you're good.
yeah.
Good stuff, man. I'm excited to see your campaign. I will tell you that. I'm definitely looking forward to it. So guys on my channel, make sure you check out the guys over at Ion Radio. Make sure you give them a like, give them a subscribe. Watch their battle reports. I can't wait, guys. I'm super amped about it. It's kind of fun to see your creations at work. So I'm definitely definitely amped up to see who comes out on top here.
Cool. Well, I think it'll be fun for us. Aaron, thank you very much for being up on our channel. So again, for our viewers, definitely take a look at what Aaron does over at DFA Wargaming. It's great Battletech reviews. Again, inspiration for what we've done. So like and subscribe his stuff too.
Yeah, well, thank you guys. I really appreciate you setting this up and having me on your channel. Looking forward to maybe doing it again sometime. Maybe a wrap up when your campaign is done.
Oh, definitely. We would love to do that.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, guys, thanks again. Have a great night.
Thank you. You do the same.
Same.